Welcome to Attican Plays Railway Empire. All right, hi, this is Attican, and welcome to another Railway Empire video. Welcome to part 3 of The Lady, Patchwork, and the Pursuit of Perfection. And in part 2, we knocked off that really tough task of connecting 750,000 people to our network. And we're staying on track for gold. Now we've got to get an express line going between Berlin and Cologne. And we've got to, main thing is grow 10 cities to a population of 120,000. That's going to be a job. Now, we're going to, I think that based on comments I'm seeing out there, people are struggling with getting that express line from Berlin to Cologne. I'm going to show you a method that comes from Leonidas Savalas, our chief engineer. And so it's chief engineer approved and it's Attican approved because it absolutely works. I'm going to show you how to do this to make sure that you get that express line quickly. It's still going to take you about a little under a year and a half, like a year and 3 or 4 months to get the status even once you get it set up because, well, I'll explain when we get there. So what I'm doing right now is really kind of a way to take advantage of the Lady and express lines. We're going to install these lines we set up down here to quickly get us to 750,000 population or connections. We are actually going to go ahead and run lines down here. We're going to run passenger and mail lines, a single track, single train between each of these cities we set up down here in this region, Nuremberg and whatever that city is, Beirut or something like that. I don't know, Bayuk, I don't know, whatever. And we're going to set up all these lines, just a single train. And what's going to happen, interestingly enough, is they'll all turn into express trains. And again, I'll get into more of that in a little bit. I actually goofed up this line, the second line. I goofed up the signal. Now I'm putting a signal down there at the end because I want the train, even if the train coming from the other direction is in the station, I want that train to keep moving and go down there as close as it can so it can queue up as close to the station as possible. No reason for it to hang back and wait for that station to clear. But if you're going to do that, you have to make sure you don't do what I just did right there and put that red directional signal on the end of it because that'll really mess it up. So this guy here, I've got this one totally messed up. And I'm just going back and redoing it and saying, okay, go from the B town, whatever that is, down to that R town, whatever that is down here to the south, and run your passenger mail that way. Now we can run one from the B town over here to Nuremberg and have a passenger mail line there. And the other thing I'm doing is we're going to start putting repairs on our repair sheds, maintenance sheds on our stations, on our city stations and our warehouses. One thing, I'm getting tired of going back and updating them, and secondly, and I've still got to investigate this, but again, when we get to the express lines, I think it has something to say about the express lines as well. So here we are setting these up, and we're just doing this because this is easy money. We've already got these down here. Now, we could just as easily, of course, go in and clean this up and delete all these stations and get back a fair amount of money. But instead, I just decided to go ahead and run the lines. Why not? They're there. And it's also kind of good practice on how to get an express line. It'll give you another example of how this works. So now we can run a line over from Nuremberg to Würzburg, and it'll be a good profitable line for us as well. You also notice there I forgot to put a supply tower on this one, but so that'll come back and bite us here in a little bit. All right, so now we've got these lines set up, and what we're going to do next is we need to, of course, create a line between Cologne and Berlin. There's no way to get an express line if we don't have the line set up in the stations. But the other thing is we have to have access to the region that Berlin is in, which is called Brandenburg. We have to have access to the Brandenburg region before we can even start to work on Berlin. Now, when we were doing the let's quickly get 750,000, that one down there, that we were just in, where Nuremberg is, was just a beautiful region for us because our competitor down there did a beautiful job of building the towns down there, and there were like 330,000 people in that region, which was awesome. That really made it great for us to get a lot of people connected to our network. But at the same time, we do have to go get that region that Berlin is in so we can start working on that express line. So prior to doing that, I'm going to go through this exercise of putting maintenance sheds on all the city stations and all the warehouses. And so I don't have to do those mass replaces anymore. Now, I was looking to see if there's a cool list. Remember, I'm running version 9, the new beta, and they've got some different lists now that are kind of cool. I haven't really figured out how to take advantage of them yet, but maybe someday I will. And I was hoping there would be a ability to see, well, who has repairs and who doesn't, but unfortunately that's not there. That's not available. But at any rate, we'll get back to this now that I've had my little play there and didn't find anything I liked. So now we'll get back to putting repair or maintenance buildings on all of our stations, our city stations and warehouses. And let's just speed up just a little bit. This is pretty boring, but I do go through this and try to catch all of them. I think I missed one, as it turns out. All right, so now we've got those maintenance buildings built, and we've accumulated enough cash through using our bonds to be able to open up the Brandenburg territory. And what we're going to do here is put a large train station, not one with auto signals, but a large train station with the platforms we can control in Berlin. And by the way, this could be done with a small train station just as easily, but to be certain, given the distance, I wanted to have more options, and I'll explain that in a minute. So we've got a large train station in Berlin. Now we're going to run over and find Cologne, if I don't get lost. There it is. And we're going to want to expand this station. We're going to want to have a large station in Cologne. So what we're going to do is take out the trains that are currently our passenger and mail line between Cologne and up there to the north to Essen. And we're going to delete part of that track and move it over and connect it to the other station in Cologne, because I want all 4 platforms of the easternmost station to be available to us for our run to Berlin. So here we're just taking out the end of the track. We're going to expand this other Cologne station, and we're going to run a direct line in there to platform 3, and then run it back out from platform 3 back to the supply tower where it got cut off, and then set up our little point-to-point connection. And I'll actually lop off that little extra bit there. Might as well get a little money back. Okay, so now we've got we're going to have to build a new line now, because they're going from Essen to a different station, and of course that's why we killed all the other trains. And now we're going to run dining car and mail car, and we'll even put a conductor on there, and we'll run 4 trains on that little line and let them take off. So now we've got that rebuilt. So now we can go in and expand our other Cologne station, the one that's going to be tied up with Berlin, linked up to Berlin. And we want all 4 platforms. So now we're going to build our track back from Cologne over to Berlin. And we're going to, and the track is really, I'm not even sure the track matters. I mean, we could have big inclinations in it. We could have it with or without tunnels, whatever. It actually kind of doesn't matter. So, but we want to get by as cheaply as we can. There's no reason to waste money, and also in the longer term, not just to get an express status, but to make money going down the road. We want these trains turning over as fast as they can, because they can make huge amounts of money on these big long passenger mail lines, especially with the lady. So we're just picking our way across here. We're going to go up a little north of that mountain right there, and swing in between the mountain and the logging camp, then go over here and go south of Brandenburg, cross the river, or Magdeburg, excuse me, wrong Berg. So we'll go down here and go south of Magdeburg and cross that river, whatever that is. Could that possibly be the Rhine? I don't know. My geography's not very good. And so now we can cross over our opponent's line here and work our way all the way over here to our new station in Berlin. And we're going to run this one. We're going to, I had to sit here and do the mental gymnastics, but it should go into that platform 4, that leftmost platform. So I'm going to scoot it over and even accept a little bridge up there, just because I want to make sure there's enough room to put 4 tracks running through there. Very important. Got to have 4 distinct, unique tracks going back and forth the way I'm doing this. So just got to go back through this and clean up this one crossing, raise it up to the lowest possible bridge, see if we can drag it out and make it a little bit flatter without getting silly on the cost. And again, it doesn't matter whether it's got the big incline or not. It'll still work. It'll still get us an express status. So got this one weird, oh, I see. Right there at the bridge, it's got too low. There we go. Got that straight. Now we can build the whole line. And if we wanted to, we could actually stop right there, run one train from Cologne to Berlin. It could be automatic, or it could be passenger mail only. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And run that one train, and guess what will happen? On the second tour, a tour is where a train goes, say a train runs between Cologne and Berlin, like this one. One tour is going from Cologne to Berlin and then coming back. And once it's finished any maintenance it's doing and unloaded on that return, at that return station, that's one tour. And that's where you'll see the stats on the train. And then if it goes around and does another one, that's the second tour. Now, what has to happen here for us to get express is it has to go out and make one tour, establish a time, and then it has to beat that time on the second tour. And as soon as it finishes its second tour, it's done. You have an express line. So the reason I'm going to build multiple of these is because I want 4 chances at this to almost eliminate the possibility that on every single train, the first pass would be faster than the second pass, and we would have to wait for a third pass or fourth tour in order to get our express status. Now, the reason we can't afford to wait is this is a long, long line. And the way the game simulates time and simulates this trip, it actually takes over 15 months to do one tour of this line from Cologne to Berlin. 15 months. So it takes 15 months to do 2 tours. Pardon me. So with those 2 tours done, that's when we could first expect to see an express status. Well, if I only left this at one line and it happened to have a breakdown on the second tour, now I've got to wait for a third tour, which takes a long time. Well, I'm after gold here. So we want to make sure this happens. And the best way to make sure is to run 4 lines. So this costs a lot of money to build this track, but that's okay. We're going to reap the benefit of having multiple. At the end of the day, we'll have multiple express lines running. And we'll get our gold status because of this approach. So thank you, Mr. Chief Engineer, for, as usual, your expert advice. So what's the theory? Again, the theory is once you get that second tour, when you come back, provided that second tour is faster than the first one, guess what? You are the fastest train on that line. In fact, it may even be that you're the fastest train even if your first tour was the faster one, because it's still you. It's still that train. So really, it's a matter of having that one train on one line making 2 tours. And that's it. That's all it takes to get an express line, because you now have the fastest train. It's not all the stuff we were thinking, straightest line, flattest line, get rid of the competition, have the fastest train, blah, blah, blah. It has to do with, are you the fastest train on that line? So what we're going to see here is once these four are doing well, and let me just fast forward through the rest of this track building and show you how the lines are then going to be set up. All right, so we have 4 lines running from these 2 stations, and you'll notice too that we don't have any signals because we're only going to put 1 train on each line, and we're going to assign each train to a specific platform. And if we, of course, given the way it's set up, if you assign it on one end, it automatically has to use the corresponding platform on the other end where that particular line is hooked up. So you can see here we end up with 4 trains coming out of our 4 platforms from each of the 2 stations, going to the corresponding station, turning around and coming back. So on each of those lines of track that run all the way from Cologne to Berlin, there's only going to be 1 train on each one. So total of 4 trains, and that way those 4 trains will run back and do a full tour, then they'll do a second tour, and sure enough become express trains. And what that's going to give us is an express train in roughly, let's call it 15 months or so. So let's do a little projection here. It's December 53. Let's call it January, February, March. Let's call it about April-ish of 1854. We should expect 6 of February. Maybe a little later than that. It depends. Maybe it may take longer than I was thinking. Now, other good thing is, and I'd like to think I'm this smart, but I wasn't. Didn't have supply towers on the first run, and a couple of the trains got slowed down. That's all good. If it really matters about the second run being faster, which again we still got to figure that out. But get those supply towers in there so these trains don't slow down. And the other thing is, as you know, we just got through putting maintenance on everything because I'm going to quit doing those mass deletes because I've actually used this technique and it's taken a long time to get the express status, and I think it was because I continued to do the mass updates of the trains, and every time I did, I apparently reset the counter for the reward of an express train. So we're going to make sure we keep those same trains running. That's why I wanted to get the maintenance out here so I wouldn't have the rest of my system breaking down because I didn't want to do a mass update. So now we're going to go into another process, and this is going to be a rinse and repeat process, where we're going to start buying access to a new region. As soon as we get that access, we're going to run all the available passenger and mail lines we can to continually boost up our economy. We're going to put maintenance buildings on them, and you'll see here in Hamburg I used a large station rather than a small. Now, why is that? Well, a couple of things. One, basically from here on out, I want to start using train stations rather than 2 small stations because we're going to start doing the maintenance. So it's cheaper now to build a train station for 100 plus maintenance for 180, rather than building 2 small for 80 and then having to put 2 maintenance buildings on them, which then makes your cost so that 80 plus 160, 240. So that 180 is certainly cheaper than 240. So we're going to, and I'm not so worried about encroachment from the competition. The competition's pretty weak. We're blowing them out of the water right now. And they won't be around that much longer. You know that. So we're going to start using train stations as our connection. But here's 2, of course, immediately as soon as I explain that to you, there's 2 exceptions. Hamburg is going to have this line coming up from Bremen. It's also going to have a line going out to Flensburg, and it's going to have a 3rd line going over to Schwerin. And that being said, it's going to need 3 stations, so I decided to go ahead and use a large station there because I know that's coming. You can see it coming because there's a city, Flensburg, up there to the, there it is right there. So we're going to connect that. And here's their other exception. There's nothing else up there. That's the end of the road up there. So you're just using a single small station there. There's no reason to use a train station. Although, interestingly enough, it turned out there was a reason later on. So here we go. This is and I think I've talked about this before, but it also bears repeating. The scale of this map is different from the scale of other maps we've used, particularly the U.S., because if you look at that big long line right there from between Flensburg and Hamburg, that looks like a giant line. That looks like, from my eyeballs, that looks like one of those two supply tower, 6 train kind of things. And I promise you that is what it is. But distance-wise, that's a shorter line than Kansas City to Grand Rapids on Toledo to Grand Rapids, excuse me. That's a shorter line than Toledo to Grand Rapids in terms of overall mileage. So the scale of everything has changed, and we have to kind of adapt to that. And I've been using kind of just my eyeballs. I've played this game so much, I just kind of have a feel for how long these lines are. And maybe I'm overdoing the trains, but I don't think so. It seems to be working out awfully well. So there were up to 9 connections. So we're working on, while we're waiting on the Berlin Cologne express trains to pop, we're also working on getting our connections to 16 regions. So we got to earn the money to get into 16 regions. And so again, the technique we're using, besides just the good building we've done so far, is open up a region, connect up all the cities with passenger mail lines so that our rate of income continually increases, and that way we can grow and grow and grow and grow quickly, and should be able to get into a new region almost as fast as we can finish setting up the last one. That's the state you want to be in, where you're just kind of, let's build the next one as fast as we can. And I may have underestimated the length of the journey for the round trip. I may have that off. But anyway, here we go. We're looking to see how much is it going to cost us to move into that next region next door. And we're going to save up money until we can work with what we save or with bonds in order to get another region opened up. And here's the one where I was talking about. I forgot the supply tower. So now slap that down, and that takes care of that little problem. You notice we're not getting a lot of the red triangles or the yellow triangles now, because we have our repairs turned on and we have supply towers, so the system can maintain itself and we can just keep running the same trains. It doesn't mean we might not come back later and do an update, but right now, don't really want to, though, because once you get that, if it's true, and again, this is just kind of my observation, I haven't tested it. If it's true that doing that mass update can kill your express status, you don't want to go there. You certainly don't want to go there with the lady. In fact, that's something I will go out and take a look at, because if we play with the lady in future videos or future plays, or if you guys start using the lady based on how well it's going here, and then if it matters about the mass updates and express lines, you'd be crazy to do the mass updates. You'd be much better off to go ahead and bite the bullet and spend the money for maintenance buildings right up front and keep running the same trains, at least until you're ready to upgrade to a better train. So there we got the Ashcroft, which increases the power of our locomotives, hoping that'll help us with our express trains. But again, we're not worried, because we just have to be the fastest train on that line, and there's only one train on the line going from Berlin to Cologne. There just happens to be 4 lines, 4 opportunities for that to fall into place. So now we can expand to another one, and I'm going to fast forward again, because I'm just repeating myself, literally. Save money. Open up a region, set up your train station, hook up your passenger mail lines, rinse and repeat, ad nauseum. So let's just move ahead. All right, so at this point, I'm kind of thinking, man, we ought to be seeing an express line. Is this working or not? As our chief engineer led me astray. So I'm checking here and realizing that this train hadn't even done 2 full laps yet. And of course, it's not going to get that status until it hits that second one. So I'm thinking when this train pulls in, we will get it. But look at this, one pulled in probably down at the other end, right before it finished its second tour. So early August of 1854. And I went back and checked, and actually it turns out that we didn't even have, or I didn't have, the setup for this line until October of 1853. So we did just fine there. It took us about 10 months to get express status, and we got our gold and all as well. So now we've got to finish off getting those connections to all the regions, and I'm really getting a little bit sick of running lines at this point, so I'm just going to go into buying mode. Our economy's strong now. We're recouping our money very quickly, so I'm just going to buy out some regions to finish off that task. So there you see I just bought 2 in a row. We're up to 14. We need 2 more regions. Now these suckers are expensive. Occasionally you'll find one around 2 million, but they're usually 4, 3, 3.5, well, 3.5 to 4 million. So checking to see how the banking looks. We got we could close out a $4 million bond to open a bigger one. We're probably going to need about 4 million, so it's all the same. And we're still following the same policy. I am hiring a few security guards when it comes up, when the opportunity presents itself, and I know I've got a line freight directly into a city. At this point, I actually went bonus hunting. Saw this connection bonus for beets, and I'm actually going to put this here, and instead of going in and deleting it, I'm going to leave it there. So that's why I ran this line on down to where it could probably be used, because I'm actually going to use it because we could use the beets in our original 3 cities. Certainly to feed them. And then here's the one up in Flensburg where I said that single station actually turned out to be, not the exception, because they ended up expanding it and running in a really short little line here to pick up this bonus. If you're going to get a bonus for connecting up something, go ahead, connect it and make some money on it. So we're going to connect wheat into Flensburg. Really short line, only going to run 1 train, and give it a supply tower on a single piece of track, and minimal investment, almost a $500,000 bonus. Lovely. All right, so you see our money's hopping back up there as we go out and set these up. Our money's up to almost 4.8 million at this point so quickly, over 5 now as we're speaking. So starting to work. And this other bonus is for an express line. I usually don't mess with those, trying to set up specific, a certain express line. It's usually more trouble than it's worth. But any of those connection bonuses, just connect some rural farm or something to the line. Those are the ones you really want to go for. So now we're going to buy this territory down here to the south of Worms, and we need 1 more. So look around for a bargain, and we'll buy 1 more territory. That'll give us our express line between Berlin and Cologne, and it'll give us our 16 regions connected to our network. And here's one that gives us more passenger money. Can't beat that. Not with the lady. You can see how quickly now the money is coming right back to us. And one reason is because we kept growing our engine. We kept expanding. We kept building more and more passenger lines. Now, you also notice it's October 1854, and we haven't addressed that city building other than our original 3. So we're going to have to get on that big time to stay on gold watch here. But there we go. We've got our task done. We've got those two out of the way with gold checks. We've learned a lot about the express lines, and we got our regions ready. So now when we come back for the next episode, we will get into some serious city growth. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it'll help you become a better player, and I hope you'll join us for our next Railway Empire video. Thank you.